You know, the thing about an experimental slasher is, it's all in the execution. What is up, everybody, and welcome to my early review of In a Violent Nature. This is an experimental slasher film that is shown mostly from the perspective of the silent killer that is going to be released, I assume, to limited theatrical release on May 31st and then a little bit later on Shudder. Now let's get a couple of things out of the way. This is more of an art house, elevated type of slasher, so I figure I would elevate my typical attire. Actually, I'm full of shit. I had to go do a parent-teacher conference at my kid's school today, and I just didn't want to change clothes, so you get formal Cody today.
Ah, yeah.
Second order of business is that I actually did see this a little over a month ago at the Overlook Film Festival in New Orleans, Louisiana. I just have not had a chance to put out a review, and I honestly felt it might be more valuable to wait closer to release time now that I've started to see a lot of buzz building on Twitter and some other places. You know, put this out into the conversation while the conversation is being had. So some of you know a little bit of my thoughts on this in my Overlook Film Festival ranking, and if you actually want to check out my ranking and all the other films that are mostly independent and yet to be released films, then check out that video up here, whatever fucking side it goes to. But yeah, this was a film that I heard about probably back in January or February when the trailer debuted and everybody went nuts saying, oh, this is so cool, this is so experimental, and it is literally taking kind of the template, almost too much of the template, and we'll get into that, of things like a classic Friday the 13th film, and just switching the perspective. The camera is over the shoulder of the silent killer throughout about 90% of the movie. There's a little bit of it that shifts perspectives here and there throughout the story, but most of it is you literally following the killer as he silently stalks these teenagers in the woods and fucks them up. And you know, the interesting thing about In a Violent Nature is that it's taking something that is near and dear and nostalgic to a lot of us, something that was a childhood comfort, a good old-fashioned quintessential slasher film, and trying to update it for adult tastes. Very similar to how Magic Spoon is trying to do that exact same thing for your childhood favorite cereals. So if you enjoy your nostalgic favorites of your childhood but want to enjoy them without all of that extra guilt, check out the sponsor of today's video, Magic Spoon. Growing up, a delicious bowl of cereal was absolutely a requirement to start my day. But I'm also somebody who is now in my older age trying to watch my sugar intake and the amount of carbs that I eat every single day. And let me tell you, it is a cold, depressing day when you realize that your childhood favorites no longer fit your lifestyle. Well, with Magic Spoon, I'm able to enjoy all of my childhood favorites once again. Magic Spoon is a wholesome, high-protein cereal that has 0 sugar, 13 to 14 grams of protein, and only 4 to 5 net carbs per serving. And it comes in a wide variety of your favorite flavors such as cocoa, peanut butter, and fruity, and even a few wilder flavors like cinnamon roll, maple waffle, and birthday cake. You can even be bold like me and mix some of your favorites into a chocolate peanut butter delight. And if you want some of that delicious nostalgia on the go, they now have Magic Spoon treats. All of their treats have 1 gram of sugar, 11 to 12 grams of protein, and only 1 to 2 net carbs per serving. So if you're ready to enjoy some of your childhood favorites without all of that guilt, click the link in the video description below and get some Magic Spoon cereal today. You can build your own custom box with all the flavors you love and use my code CLEACH for $5 off. You can choose from any of the flavors I've already showed, plus some other favorites like frosted, honey nut, blueberry muffin, and chocolate chip cookie. And you can add any of their delicious cereal treats to your order. And Magic Spoon is so confident in their product that it comes with a 100% happiness guarantee. So if you don't like it for any reason, they'll refund your money without any questions asked. So click the link below or scan the QR code and use the code CLEACH for $5 off, or go to magicspoon.com/CLEACH to save $5 off of your order today. And for my Canadian and British fans, Magic Spoon ships to Canada and the UK. And thank you so much to Magic Spoon for sponsoring today's video. So starting off with the positives for In a Violent Nature, the main thing that everybody is going to be talking about in regards to this film, whether you love it or hate it, is the yoga kill. And I'm not going to talk anything in specifics about the setup of this kill or where it is in the film or what specifically happens, but if you're gonna have a slasher film, whether it's experimental or traditional, you better have some creative kills, you better have some great practical effects, otherwise you will absolutely disappear into obscurity. And while There's other kills in this movie that are good, that are serviceable, that are certainly interesting, if nothing else because of the perspective from which we see these kills happening. The yoga kill is easily an all-timer for me. If there was a Hall of Fame of slasher kills somewhere in the US, this would instantly be an induction this year, okay? I'm not trying to overhype this kill, but when you see it, you will know exactly what I was talking about. It's not only creative, but it also kind of goes almost the Terrifier 2 route, where as soon as you think the kill is over, more happens, and the practical effects were phenomenal with it. I mean, when I saw it at the festival with the festival crowd, and this was the closing film that night, so it was late at night and everybody was kind of tired, and the nature of the movie kind of makes you even more tired, which we'll get into. When that kill happened, all you heard was reactions. Oh, what the fuck? Oh, yes. Don't believe all those reports that have been going around the last couple of weeks about people throwing up in the aisles or somebody had to be escorted out or whatever the hell it said. Can we just stop marketing horror movies off of that? Somebody had to have a vomit bag. Fuck off, okay? Nobody believes that anymore. That doesn't work, and more often than not, when you put that out there as some form of forced viral marketing, it turns actual horror fans off because we automatically assume your movie ain't got shit. This one's got some shit, but it's not vomit-inducing. It's just awesome.
I like it a lot.
Moving on from that carnage candy that we all love, one thing that I really did enjoy about the experiment of this movie and the changing of your traditional perspective and how we experience the story of a slasher, I really liked how we were able to get the backstory and the origins and some of the rules and even some of the past events regarding the killer of this film, who is named very simply Johnny. And it's just a really interesting way that they decided to unfold some of that exposition throughout the film. He just comes across somebody while they're mid-conversation, or, they start to talk about the legend of these woods, very similar to like Friday the 13th Part 2, that little bonfire scene. And I just thought it was neat. I thought that it made all of that exposition, all those details feel like they weren't forced at all. It didn't feel like people are just stopping to talk about it for no reason. It felt organic in the storytelling, and you only get chunks of it throughout the movie that you kind of have to piece together for yourself. The movie's also shot very well. There is a lot of nature on display here, a lot of things in the woods. Somebody that I actually attended the festival with said that it was basically a nature documentary with some kills, and there's a good bit of truth to that, but the nature side of it is shot very well. It's lit very well, most of which natural lighting. And even the way that they kind of have that affixed camera angle over the killer's shoulders as he's walking through the woods or as he's stalking victims, and even the small amounts of times when we get to change perspectives to somebody else in the film, I feel like the camera work was utilized to its full potential to execute this film the way that they wanted to execute it. And finally, this is going to be the weirdest thing you have ever heard to describe a slasher film that is filled with as much gore as one like this. It's a soothing movie. Before we actually launched our screening in New Orleans, the host of this screening said exactly that, and nobody knew what the fuck this dude was talking about. He's like, this is going to be the most soothing slasher film you have ever seen. You're going to sit back in your chair, and you're going to feel all relaxed, and the tension's going to leave your body from just the ambient sounds of the film. And we're like, what fucking movie did we walk into? I walked into Violent Nature, right? This sounds like some Fern Gully shit. But no, this is a movie where a lot of it being over the shoulder, following this killer as he walks through the woods, there's this like metronome effect with the sound design where just footsteps through the woods and breaking sticks and the ambient noise of the woods and the forests, and I'll be damned, it was soothing. Maybe don't watch this movie at home after a long day, really late at night when you're kind of out of it. Probably make this like a Sunday afternoon watch or something. But yeah, it's the only slasher film that I would say is soothing for the right reasons. Some of us are just fucked up and it's soothing for the wrong reasons, and I'll own that. Moving on to the mixed aspects, and the main one is the nature of this experiment. Telling this story through the perspective of the killer, this bird's eye view over the shoulder of the killer. I love the fact that somebody wanted to do something different with the slasher subgenre, a subgenre that is notoriously difficult to find something fresh and unique to do with it, aside from trying to invent a new killer or having just a really badass kill. So that side of it, I absolutely appreciate, and there's going to be some of you that enjoy it way more than I did. The fact that it's unique and there's nothing like it and it's just a complete different experience for a slasher, that's going to be everything that you want and need out of this film, and that's totally fair. But for me, while it is interesting, while it is unique, and while I absolutely commend the effort and want to continue to see ideas like this attempted by filmmakers, there's a lot that is pretty important to the slasher experience for me that is completely dismantled because of the nature of this movie. A lot of the tension, a lot of the excitement, a lot of the urgency of not knowing where the killer is, or when the killer's gonna pop out, or if the killer's still alive, or if the killer's in the house, all these things that give you that adrenaline rush in a really good slasher. You don't have that here, because you're always following the killer, so you know exactly where the fuck he is, you know exactly who he's about to fuck up, and you know when he's about to fuck them up. And it just creates this very odd experience to where there's not really this forward momentum in the movie, and these things that should be very tension-filled and be these rising actions throughout the film narratively kind of have this nonchalant edge about them, where you're just kind of watching it happen, and there's not a whole lot of emotional response to it. There's not a whole lot of adrenaline attached to it. You're just kind of going through the motions in a way, because it's all just laid out in front of you with no real surprises. And that's absolutely what's going to make or break this movie, and that's the nature of an experiment like this. It's going to really pay off for some, it's really not going to pay off for others, and I think both perspectives and anything in between is going to be completely valid here. There's going to be people that love how artsy it is, and love how unique and different it is, and absolutely want to see more of these, whether it's in a franchise with this, or different movies, or someone's going to be pitching a POV style Friday the 13th within a week of this. You watch, it's going to happen, mark my words. And then there's going to be plenty of people who are just as hardcore of slasher fans as this group that are going to say, fuck no, appreciate the effort, but that did not work, and there's a reason why nobody has done it before. Let's not do it again. The other mixed aspect is the look of Johnny. Now, there's things about it that I enjoy. I like his signature weapons that he gets in the film, which I'm not going to describe because it's part of kind of the journey you go on, where he rediscovers things that fit kind of this firefighter theme that his character is going for. His mask, I'm not as much of a big fan of. It has this very big bug-eyed thing about it. It's a very old school, like archaic vintage style firefighter helmet that has like this breathing apparatus as well as this little whistle that's hanging down. Again, it's unique, it's different. Some of it kind of gives like Brightburn vibes, if you've seen that film, the evil Superman kid, but it didn't fully work for me. Thought it was cool, didn't love it. And now moving on to the negatives. And this first one can kind of be tied into the main mixed aspect of the experiment, but it's absolutely the most negative byproduct of that. The pacing of this movie is an absolute slog. There are so many extended sequences of you following behind the shoulders of Johnny as he walks through the woods. Just unbroken shots of this big hulking dude walking through a lot of the movie. I mean, I haven't seen it in over a month, but I don't think I'm over-exaggerating by saying about 60% of this film is you just experiencing that. Just this guy walking through the woods and walking towards a house and walking up to somebody and seeing somebody in the distance and continuing to walk towards them. I mean, it's almost to an unbearable, annoying degree that they are sticking to the whole, like, Jason Voorhees, Michael Myers, even more so lore of the killer always kind of walks and just gets there whenever they get there. Only you have to sit there and endure the entire fucking journey as a viewer.
Chucky says move your ass.
And that's the main thing that cautions me about what mood you're in, how energetic you are, and what time of day you experience this film, because God help you if you are even the least bit tired and you try to get through this. You're fucked. You're out. This is nap fuel. The other negative is that I think that this film potentially hangs too much on the tropes and the cliches of classic slashers, namely the Friday the 13th films. It's obviously trying to do things to be elevated above those cliches and trying to circumvent those cliches, and yet it very much sticks to a lot of them regarding the stupidity of the characters, the caricatures of the protagonists, some of the details regarding Johnny himself, like the rules and the origin, as well as some of the past events regarding maybe some other times that somebody has vanquished him and put him back into the ground. It's all things we've heard and seen before. So those are moments to me where this movie really had a chance to do something unique and different with the classic side of slashers, and intentionally didn't bother itself with that. And I'm somebody that I've watched so many slashers throughout my life that if it's going to be very cookie cutter, Friday the 13th part 3, and we're just going to do that with a different camera angle, I need more. Another negative for me, I didn't love the way that this movie wrapped up. Again, I'm not going to get into too much detail, but there's not enough about the character that is prominent during the ending for me to really invest myself. There's a bit of too much of an extended dialogue sequence that feels like it's almost overdrawn out just for the sake of being overly drawn out. Like it was very much intentional to have a conversation go on way too long. And aside from that, even though I kind of mentioned this in the mixed side of things, it's because of the way that they shoot this ending, the last 10 minutes or so of this film, where there's a bit of a perspective change and we're not following Johnny for the most extended period of the runtime of the film, that suddenly you realize how devoid of tension the previous 90 minutes of this film was, because the last 10 minutes or so are the only spot where you actually feel tension. You feel some uneasiness. You feel a little bit of dread of impending doom, and you don't know if something else is going to happen or when it's going to happen. And it's in that moment that suddenly the light bulb goes off as a viewer and you're like, holy shit, yeah, I haven't felt that at all this entire movie. That's weird that I haven't felt that. That's like an integral piece of the slasher experience, of the horror experience, if nothing else. So kind of purposely putting the ending into the context that they do almost draws more attention to some of the flaws of the experimental nature of the movie. And finally, this is something that is probably not going to affect the experience for too many of you because you're going to be watching this in a theater. But I saw this at a film festival with the filmmaker and I think one of the producers and the guy who played Johnny in attendance. They introed the film, they did a Q&A afterward. And I have to be completely honest with you, Chris Nash, the director of this film, his response, his answers to a lot of the audience questions honestly turned me off a bit and made me a little more callous to his film than I was before I started to hear the context he was given to a lot of these questions regarding how he approached the film. It's hard to put into context. If I didn't film it, so otherwise I'd put actual footage here. And maybe he didn't intend it to be this way. He just seems like one of those kind of snarky personalities. And every question he gave was like this snarky self-awareness of like, oh yeah, we did that to piss you off. We did that to go against the grain. We did that because the rules of movie making say this, and fuck the rules, we want to do other things. And there's an aspect that's like kind of punk rock about that, kind of rebellious, that I can respect and I can get behind. But there's also a side of it where, as an audience member, I'm immediately turned off that you intentionally did things that you knew was going to grate on my nerves just for the sake of grating on my nerves.
If you don't mind me saying so, sounds like a real asshole.
Like the extended amount of walking sequences, like some of the creative decisions regarding the last 10 minutes of the film, some other things that were brought up. It's like, what was your intention with doing that? What was the point? What was the thing you were trying to say with that? And the answer was like, there's nothing we're trying to say with that. We just did that because we knew that you're not supposed to do that, and fuck it, we're going to do whatever we want. And I'm paraphrasing the shit out of what he's saying, but that was the tone of every single answer that he was giving, that I'm just kind of sitting there baffled like, why do that? Like, I understand sometimes breaking the rules is fun, and sometimes you can find cool ways to do it and be like, see, it worked, fuck the rules. But when you're continuously doing things that you know is not going to work for an audience member, it just kind of seems like stepping on your own dick a bit. So that was my experience that none of the rest of you are going to have that are going to watch this at home or in a theater. But to just give further context to why I'm a little more callous on the film than maybe I would have been if I saw it in theaters or at home, that's why. Like, one almost direct quote that he gave that'll sum up the entire thing is that he was basically saying, we wanted to take the overused cliches of slasher films and mix it with the long, overly drawn out and ill-paced art films just so we could piss off everybody. Again, why?
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
All in all, guys, I did appreciate this movie. I can't see myself ever rewatching it, and that's a big knock on the score for me. Rewatchability is very high in the way that I score films. I don't think it's going to be a celebrated slasher. I think there's going to be some people that love it. I think more people are either going to feel mixed on it or really just not care for the direction of it at all. But we're all going to love that yoga kill, and we're all going to enjoy aspects of this. And I'll say this, I think that the movie is going to have its most value in inspiring somebody else to take aspects of this and put it into a slasher film. If you get a slasher film where once in a while we get some extended sequences following the killer, but not the entire film, I think that's going to be pretty cool. And this is a movie that's going to kick open the door for a lot of those ideas. Well, that's it for this one, guys. If you enjoyed that, please click over here for all of my 2022 new release reviews so far. I'm also going to put my review of Tarot, the worst horror film of the year that I have seen so far. Please like, share, and hit that subscribe button, and be sure to check out Magic Spoon down in the video description as well. And as always, remember, opinions are like assholes, but that doesn't mean you have to be.